Joining me now is business reporter Edward Boyd. Ed, this seems to be happening a fair bit in the US. Investors are concerned the US Federal Reserve won't start cutting interest rates now until November.
That is what's happened in the past few hours. A lot of economists in America are pushing back their expectations for when the Fed will start cutting interest rates. So there was a 50% chance of rate cuts in June before the inflation numbers came out. Since the numbers were released in the early hours of this morning, it's now a 20% chance of interest rates being cut in June. In fact, a lot of US economists are now expecting to see 2 rate cuts from the US Federal Reserve, one in November and one in December. So that's basically caused investment markets, the Wall Street markets in particular, to fall more than 1%. Our stock market down more than 1% as well this morning, because a lot of investors were hopeful that we'd start to see rate cuts early this year in America, and that would mean, hopefully as well, rate cuts earlier in the year in Australia. Those hopes have now been dashed by inflation in America in March. It's up 3.5% over the 12-month period, which is slightly higher than expected. So this is a pretty big story in the US, Laura. Even the President, Joe Biden, was asked about it at a press conference earlier today. Just take a quick listen.
Well, I do stand by my prediction that before the year is out, there'll be a rate cut. This may delay it a month or so. I'm not sure of that. We don't know what the Fed is going to do for certain. But look, we have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%. We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office, where inflation was skyrocketing, and we have a plan to deal with it.
Nash shades. Australia's March quarter inflation numbers will be released next week. Inflation here is remaining higher for longer as well.
It is, and I'll just quickly show you the graphic here that we've got, which just shows what went up in price in America over the last 12 months to March. And it's pretty much the same sort of things we're experiencing here in Australia. So overall inflation was up 3.5%. Energy costs rising, food costs still going up. So on the shelves in our supermarkets, we're seeing some things falling in price, but some other things are still elevated. Electricity costs still high in the US. They're still pretty high here. And transport in America was up about 11%. And part of that is petrol prices. So we know in Australia, the oil price has been reasonably elevated, and petrol is still around that $2 per litre. And that is a big cost for every Australian family and business. So expect transport costs for our CPI index, which comes out next week on Wednesday, going to be pretty high as well. And that obviously means it'll be really important for the outlook for interest rates for our reserve banks. They're going to see that info and make a call. We're expecting, Laura, though, rates to be on hold here now for quite some time after what we've seen in America overnight, with inflation stickier than anticipated.
Yeah, sounds like we're going to follow that lead somewhat. Ed, thanks so much.